Season 10's patch notes have just dropped. I'm going to be going over the best sets, which ones to avoid, and which ones you want to grab as soon as the patch comes online on October 13th at 7 AM PST. Let's start with the Enrage Set. Set bonuses. Hitting a target within 13 meters grants a stack of Enrage, increase outgoing damage by 1%, and increases attacker's base damage by 0.5 per stack. Max 10 stack. Massive for overall damage. At 3, your stacks are increased to 15th, and heavy attacks will give you an additional stack of Enrage. While Enrage above 70% health, you lose 5% of your HP every half second, meaning this is for the people who want to live on a knife's edge. 5. Increase max Enrage stacks all the way up to 25, then the duration of Enrage by 50%, and while enraged, all attacks deal an additional 8% damage while below 70% health. This stack is fiending. This set is fiending for you to do insane amount of damage while living on low HP, but that's completely fine, as the infixes paired with this set will blow your mind. Let me break down exactly why. While enraged, all attacks grant 20% lifesteal below 70% health. This is huge for your overall survivability. Not only are you going to be doing an insane 25% additional damage, but whenever you hit an enemy, you'll be getting 20% lifestealing while below 70%. Key takeaway here is that lifesteal can easily bring you back up to 100% HP, and as long as you're not getting one shot, you'll become an unkillable god. Trenchant Enrage. While enraged, heavy attacks now consume 3 stacks to deal 20% more damage. This is huge for burst windows and could be a nice pairing with the already increased lifestealing, giving you lots more damage and lots more survivability when combined into one. The Enraged Hunt. When exiting a dodge roll with more than 20 stamina, Enrage consumes 4 stacks to trigger a 3.5 meter radius AoE that pulls in nearby enemies, kinda like a vacuum cleaner or the girl you met on Tinder last night. Either way, they'll be sucking in enemies left and right. Enrage Refresh. Hitting a target with a light or heavy attack while above 15 stacks of Enrage will consume 3 stacks to reduce the cooldown of all active weapon abilities by 5%, with a 1-second internal cooldown. This is nice, but more dependent on the pairing of weapons you want to use. Finally, Acceleration. This basically gives you 8% haste while above 15 stacks. Overall, I would rate this set extremely strong. It gives you an insane amount of damage, very solid lifesteal, while allowing you to nuke your opponent into oblivion. I could see a health max build cook with this setup, as the more HP you have, the less chance of you actually getting punished while being below 70% HP. And since this set already gives you so much overall damage, you can definitely get away with doing that. Only time will tell, but I definitely want to try this set out with Greatsword. It seems like a phenomenal pairing. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But we're not done yet. We got many more sets to cover. Next up, Second Wind. Set bonuses to equip. While exhausted, you'll do 20% more base damage against enemies within 5 meters. Hitting an enemy within 5 meters will remove the slow from becoming exhausted by dodging. Translation: whenever your stamina goes to 0, you are exhausted and you'll be hitting harder than a freight train. Key takeaway here is when you're exhausted, you'll be slowed, but if you connect an attack to an enemy, you will get rid of that slow, meaning though, it comes with 2 downsides. One, you have to be exhausted, and one, you get a little bit of a slow on top of that. But that huge 20% increase could be well worth it depending on your class of weapon. A good example of this would be Great Axe, as Great Axe has so much mobility and CC that slow won't really bother it whatsoever. 4. Equip. While exhausted, an attack hits an enemy within 5 meters, 10% lifesteal, and grants 3% in power stacks that last for 5 seconds while exiting the exhaust state. Max 5 stacks. This would be phenomenally paired with faster hitting weapons or a double hitting combo such as Maelstrom from Greatsword, Relentless Rush from Greatsword, Maelstrom from Great Axe, or something like the Rapier that attacks multiple times relatively quickly. This set seems very strong as well, as it gives you a lot of lifesteal, a lot of empower. Mixed in with that 20% base damage, the nukes will be flying left and right. But the best part is the infixes synergize extremely well. Let me break it down. While exhausted, you cannot get uninterrupted. Translation, you can't really be CC'd unless it's hard crowd control. This is massive for overall survivability and makes this one of the strongest infixes I've seen here today. While under 50% stamina, you gain 15% crit chance. Another fantastic perk for something like the Greatsword, as that allows you to synergize extremely well, because the Greatsword uses stamina more. Cleansing Second Wind cleanses slow stuns and roots on yourself if you become exhausted by dodging. Means if you exhaust yourself by dodging instead of, let's say, blocking, you will not get the slow on you or the root, making this extremely strong. While paired with this is that gets rid of one of the major set negatives. The haste is nice, but 10% for 4 seconds is not nearly as strong as I think as the other 3 that comes with this set bonus. Next up, we got the Protected Blessing set. Healer mains, rot priests alike. Lock it in, because this one's for you. When you have 2 pieces equipped, whenever you apply a heal to a target above 50% health, you gain a stack of Protector's Blessing. Cooldown 2 seconds, max 5 stacks. While at the max stacks, you're inflicted with Ren 7%, and healing an ally has more than 50% health will add 15% fortify for 5 seconds. Strong because the Ren doesn't matter on a healer because you're already an unkillable god, and that's why I hate you and you should be banned from my arena queues. 4. Equip. Gain 3% base damage per stack while at max 5 stacks. If you heal a target that is below 50% health, the stacks are consumed and they heal for 10% of the weapon damage every second for 5 seconds. Translation, Void Blade healers are back, or Flail Rats could be extremely strong here. Those weapons already do an insatiable amount of damage, and when paired with a set like this, healers could become a hybrid between healing and DPS, unlike we've ever seen before. I truly might stop by Amazon Studios to say a polite hello. Overcharge Set. This one a little bit different. 3 equip. Hitting an enemy within 5 meters or killing an enemy grants an overcharge stack. 5-second cooldown. Each stack increases your base damage by 5% and affliction resist by 10%. You also are inflicted with 4% Ren per stack. Getting hit removes all stacks. Max stacks are 3. That's higher than I can count. This seems relatively strong for offensive playstyles, as key note here is this affliction resist only means the element type, like iced or fire, not all encompassed. And the Ren here can definitely hurt, less so in light armor, because light armor, they don't really care about armor, they just want pure raw power. At 5 stacks, max overcharge stacks increase to 5. And overcharge stacks now also increase stamina regen rate by 5%. Translation, this will be an insanely strong stat passives when paired with something like the Fire Staff, Ice Gauntlet, or something like the Musket, as light armor can use these passives better than any other class. Next up, Elementally Charge. 2 equipped. Magical weapons abilities do 7% less base damage, and they store a charge of that weapon's element for 20 seconds. Activating an ability of a non-magical weapon will consume the charge and add 10% base damage, that element, to the weapon's attack for 10 seconds. At 4, you can now store up to 2 charges of each element, while at 2 charges, you gain 10% resistance to that element. I think this thing is really bad, and I would recommend avoiding this elementally charged set. The worst part is, the infixes don't make it that much better. For example, 20% mana regen is completely useless. The less 5% elemental damage you will take is nice, but not enough to compensate for this abysmal set bonus compared to the ones we've covered previously. You have one that gives you more stamina and another one that gives you haste, but this consumes stamina, making this hands down the weakest set, and I would avoid this like the plague. Next up, the Strifling Set. Set bonuses. 2 equipped. Hitting an attack while all of your active weapon abilities are on cooldown, you silence your target for 2 seconds and yourself for 1 second. This can only occur once per 5 seconds. At 4, you get 10% more base damage and you reduce your abilities cooldown. This is extremely strong for CCing people and preventing the rats from escaping, such as bows, muskets, or fire staff. This would be definitely a melee heavy set here. As a range user, I can't really see using this as for the same effectiveness as somebody who is playing melee. You gain 10% absorption while silenced. That's nice for flat damage reduction, always very broken. You also get increased damage, a bit of an AoE that damages nearby enemies, and stam rate. These are all solid, but I would give this set mid-tier rating, unlike the earlier ones we've covered. Next up we have Tenacity. This one's very interesting, so listen up. Get grit for 2 seconds after getting staggered. However, take 5% more damage while grit is active. Successful light attacks apply grit for 3 seconds, 6-second cooldown. While grit is active, you gain 5% lifesteal. Now the set doesn't seem too spectacular on its own, as taking an additional 5% more damage while your grit is active can definitely be rough, especially for certain weapons like the Great Sword or Spear that do damage and stay in that grit animation a lot. When paired with infixes, it gets a little bit better. Armor penetration is increased by 10% when hitting a target with grit. Crit chance is increased by 10% while grit is active. This would be a very strong perk paired with those grit heavy weapons that I mentioned earlier. Enemies receive 5% damage when you hit a melee attack while grit is active, solid, but not game breaking. And incoming healings are increased by 10%. These are all okay and strong, but I wouldn't say they still compare to those first couple of sets. Another mid-tier set piece I would rate. And for our final one, Focus Set. This comes with a few bonuses. Let me break it down. 15% increased healing on targets outside of Sacred Ground or Beacon. Healings increased by 15% and cooldown reduced by 5% on healing after holding a weapon for 10 seconds. This thing is completely broken, and when you pair it with the earlier healing set, I can definitely see healers rocking both these gremlin builds come Season 10, as these seem very overpowered. Healing is already broken in New World Aeternum, and we struggle today to kill them, and now with these increased healing bonuses, I don't think you'll ever kill a Rot Priest until your heart contents. As healers don't have to be standing in their sacred ground to get this bonus, and if they're permanently sitting on their life staff, they're getting a 30% increased healing to self. With Divine Embrace in tow, yeah, good luck. You'd have better chances getting a date. You would have a better chance at watching pigs fly than killing a healer if they're wearing this set. And fixes. Self-casting Light's Embrace will cleanse players and make them immune to debuff for 2 seconds. This requires 300 focus, giving healers even more survivability, something they desperately need, right guys? That's totally what a healer needs. Focus Determination, immune to crowd control debuffs for 1-3, with 300 focus after healing cast is interrupted for 10 seconds. This is beyond broken. Healers' only downside is that they can be CC'd into infinity and beyond, and with this and fixed perk, well, goodbye CCing healers. There used to be a meta in wars where you would not actually kill the healer, but CC them to death so they couldn't heal. With this perk now online, that's not even an option anymore, truly unlocking the full hell of healer menace. I don't know if I'm going to be playing New World come Season 10, as healers will be taking over the entire battlefield. Fortified. Healing at a target under 50% health with burst heals will receive 100% fortification for 5 seconds with a 15-second cooldown, basically making your pocket healer even more broken than they already were. You want a 1vx in New World Eternum, just get a healer in your pocket, pay them some gold, and you'll never be dying. For speed, healing a target outside of Sacred Ground or Beacon grants them 10% haste for 4 seconds and 8-second cooldown, giving your little rat a bit of a heroin, a bit of a high to go off of. a true healer combination. And with that, boys, that's going to cover the sets. Hope you guys didn't find this useful. I'll be breaking down the perks in the next video, so make sure to come check that out. If you're new here, like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. A huge shout out to my YouTube channel members.